Okay, welcome and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, What's New in Work Packaging, Managing Data to Enhance Collaboration with Advanced Work Packaging. We are focusing our next few webinars on the importance of data as it relates to advanced work packaging. Our first webinar will cover managing data to support a project doing non-graphical work-based planning. So it includes a smaller project or a portfolio project that create work packages, not currently using a 3D model. We will cover other data topics in future webinars. And we'll start off today by covering how O3 manages data with API integrations, who's involved, and how it affects stakeholders. Then we'll cover key takeaways and open it up for any questions that you may have. But if you have questions throughout the presentation, please submit those in the questions panel of GoToWebinar. If you'd like to remain anonymous, you can submit those directly to me in the chat window. But first, I'd like to share a safety moment with you before I introduce our speaker and presenter, Mike Hellinga. So this safety moment is on the importance of preventative care. And as you all know, we're in the middle of a pandemic. And since then, the rates of preventative care have dropped significantly. But we need to keep in mind to continue to go to our regular checkups and screenings even during this time, because you can see in this chart that cancer screenings in particular have decreased over 80%, and that's just not safe to risk finding out during potential crucial times to catch cancer. And along with that, just other routine visits such as like blood pressure, diabetes, counseling, or even just well-child visits have dropped as well. So it's important to keep in mind that we still need to maintain regular health checkups year-round, regardless of the pandemic or anything else going on. And so for more information, you can check out the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services website. So now I'll take a moment and introduce today's speaker, Mike Hellinga. So Mike is a project manager here at O3 Solutions. He has experience on many different projects, giving him exposure to many different ways of managing data entry into O3. But most recently, it was a project with over 50 different data points. So before we begin our presentation, I'd like to share a little bit about O3 and who we are. O3 is a modern web-based platform built for construction and is one of the only true software solutions for advanced work packaging. We have many different solutions built specifically for construction to meet you where you are in the project. Our software is also scalable and can be used on small to mega projects with ease. Of course, we also have a strong ability to track and manage data, which is what we'll be digging into today. To learn more, you can always shoot me a question, or you can check us out online at www.o3.solutions. Note that there is no .com. And with that, I will turn it over to Mike to begin our presentation.
Great. Thanks, Tori, and thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here because we get to talk about something that I enjoy working with is data. So let's dive in. Managing data across multiple sources and how this can help the A2B process. So what does that mean? Data management, it's something that happens in all projects. It could be data entry into different sources, such as creating a work package matrix in Excel, or compiling the full list of documents in a DMS. Or it could be updating the schedule in P6 and sharing it with all parties. However, the data management that is the focus for today will be interfacing data from these sources all into one application, that being O3. There is a need to manage information across multiple sources, and O3 has no intention of changing that. O3 is not meant to be used as a material management system or a document management system, or really any other source software used to house and update specific data. Also, information may be managed across different contractors with different responsibilities, and this needs to remain as such. Instead, O3 can help to solve common issues that I have found in my experience implementing it on several different projects. Those projects could range from multi-billion-dollar mega projects to smaller portfolio projects. So let's talk about these problems and how O3 has helped. Now, just to be clear, this will be on how O3 has helped with non-graphical work packages. The graphical discussion will be for another day. So as I mentioned, I have found some common issues around data management on every project I've worked on. And first, that's accessibility. When data is managed in multiple sources, there will be an issue with people not having access to an application or a file. Maybe the engineering team has a status of documents stored in an Excel sheet that no one outside of the engineering team has access to. Or maybe a planner needs to know if a material is available for an IWP, but doesn't have a user in the material management software. Since O3 is a cloud-based application and there's no limit on the number of users, this data can be available at any time without relying on anyone else to provide it. Second issue is one that often isn't known until data is in O3, and that issue is with the data accuracy. When data is managed all in one solution, it will be compared across all sources, which makes any inaccuracies or inconsistencies be obvious. In addition, by interfacing with O3, these inconsistencies, such as differences in nomenclatures or dates not lining up, will also have many more eyes searching for them. The next issue is creating automation and reporting based on relationships between data from different sources. So a DMS may show you a list of documents that are associated with a work package, but in O3, we go a step further and notify you if a document is not complete and the planned start date of a work package is just a few weeks away. O3 offers this and many other types of relationships that can be used to create and clear constraints automatically without changes to any of your current processes. Now that brings us to the last issue, managing the integration of data. This requires a lot of time and a strict set of rules when done manually. So that is why we say just don't do it manually. Instead, take advantage of O3's easy-to-use API calls. This is the ability to automate this process, which has provided our clients a huge value. And since O3 API has access to import anything automatically that you can import manually, the process to move to automated interfacing is a no-brainer. If this process is managed by humans, then you certainly can count on human-created errors. Not only does that mean there's an additional time spent tracking down and fixing those errors, but these interfaces, they need to follow a strict set of rules, and you can count on that with API calls. Because of that, this will help to find and sort out any of those remaining errors. Now, automating the interface process also allows them to be scheduled during off hours. This means the work package won't be updated while a planner is actually completing the constraints. This is also important because the process of managing all the different interfaces will get time consuming. When implementing the use of O3's interfaces on projects, I found our clients continue to find ways to leverage the value that they give. So that number of interfaces continues to rise. In fact, on one of our projects, we now have over 50 interfaces automated. If this had to be done manually, the process would take over 70 hours per week. That's almost 2 full-time positions it would take to complete this. So let's take a look at this project. O3's intended use on this LNG facility is constraint management. From the beginning, we got to work on configuring the work package workflow to be live on constraint management as quickly as possible. However, at the same time, we started the process of evaluating the data involved to see how we could make people's lives easier by bringing that data into O3. When first going through the discovery process on this project, we planned on around 15 interfaces and started working on moving the data into O3. At the same time, we were getting people trained and in using O3. After just a few weeks, those users discovered more and more reasons to move more data into O3. As of now, we have over 50 interface points, and the number continues to rise. At this point, we have a lot of data in O3 and many users benefiting from it, including users from 2 different subcontractors. So how do we do it? Now, we don't just start moving data into O3. Instead, data management should always follow these best practices. So we just saw in our case study, though, one step does not end as you move into the next. We'll continue to cycle through this process and expand. So the first step would be having discovery. So this is going through the process of answering some basic questions. So it'd be who. We need to know who's going to be involved, who needs to help facilitate this process. Some examples could be your IT department, AWP managers, data experts based on the source, or even different contractors. Now, going back to the case study, myself and the IT department meet regularly to discuss any work in progress. However, we often need to bring in an AWP team member to confirm the decisions being made. And we need to have access to a materials management expert to understand where the data is coming from. Now, using everybody that's involved, we're going to answer the question, what? And this is a moving target. O3 will make recommendations on what needs to be moved first, but we'll constantly reevaluate with the client to see where else values can be provided. And once you know what data we're looking for, we'll need to know where it's coming from. Now, this is usually set from the start with minimal changes throughout the process. So we'll understand your source of data, and that generally doesn't change too much throughout the process. However, the how, this is going to be something that we have to reevaluate. Every time we decide there's more data to pull, we're going to need to know how we're going to put that into O3. And that's really the process of mapping that data from one field to the next in O3. Along with that, we need to know when. So the frequency of when we're putting data in could be based on when we're getting data from the sources, or it might be when it is needed by the end user. This could be done daily, weekly, or monthly. So while we're going through the data discovery process, we are also going to be documenting this process. This is a very important part of this because it's very important to have a source of record where anyone can find the answers to those previous questions. By having those answers documented in one spot, this is going to provide clarity and eliminate any assumptions. Now, once we have some data to move, we're going to need to schedule and execute these interfaces. As I mentioned earlier, this could be daily, weekly, or monthly, and they could also rely on other interfaces running beforehand. Once we have those scheduled, it's time to test and remove those errors. Now, once you decide to move forward with O3, we will spin up a site in the cloud. In this one site, we are able to create a sandbox project as well as a production project. We're going to use this sandbox project to test and remove any errors that you find. Only then do we execute interfaces into production. So who's going to benefit from interfacing all this data into one source? So a couple examples here. We have owners and executives. They're no longer going to need to track down relevant information. Instead, it's going to be available to them anytime and from anywhere. Also, you're going to have engineers benefiting from this. Progress on engineering work packages and drawings will be available to construction without the engineers having to change their process at all. That information is going to be available by just logging into O3. You also have workplace planners being able to watch the constraints automatically get created, say when a material is not available for your installation work package, and the installation work package is supposed to execute. Now, when that material becomes available again, that constraint will automatically be cleared just by integrating that data into O3. Now, those are a couple examples, but basically everyone that you want to give access to O3 is going to benefit from this. And since O3 has no limit on the number of users, anyone can be added to view the data you want them to see. Now, I say that because every user's access can be limited with a defined set of roles set by your administration. But in addition to this, even the people that aren't in O3 will benefit, because throughout this process, I have also seen an increase in communication as more people are able to see the data. An increase in communication is always a win. So before I hand it back to Tori, I'd like to sum up what I hope you got out of today's discussion. So first off, data is collected from multiple sources and represented in one platform. With data merged together in one location, challenges with accuracy or consistency can easily be identified and corrected. You also no longer need to rely on partners to provide updates on data. Instead, all parties can access the data with clear, personalized reporting. And then lastly, relationships between sources can be automatically shown as constraints. You'll be able to automatically create constraints on engineering work packages if a document is not IFC. That same constraint will be cleared when the updated status is interfaced into O3. And having all this run without worry using O3's API integrations. So with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Tori.
All right, thank you, Mike, for your presentation. And at this time, we'll moderate any questions you may have via the question panel and GoToWebinar. And keep in mind that today's presentation is all around non-graphical work packaging. Any questions about data management with 3D models will be covered in a later webinar. So with that, Mike, here's a few that came in during the presentation. So the first question is, can you use API calls to get data out of O3 as well as input it in?
Yes, O3 has API endpoints for just about any data available in O3. So any table we have in O3, you can input data into as well as extract it out using those API calls.
Okay, cool. And then next question, you mentioned as part of the process, you will test and remove errors. How do you find these errors?
Sure, yeah. O3 has an elegant importing function, and that will provide a list of errors created when completing any import. This is available if it's done manually or via API call. This report is also downloadable as an Excel spreadsheet. So we'll be able to take that spreadsheet, compare those errors, and it'll direct us right to the line where the error was created, and then we can sort those out.
Okay, great. Well, that looks like all the time we had allotted for today. But again, please contact us if you'd like more information or have other questions. And thanks again to Mike, and thank you to everyone who was able to join today's webinar. And as a reminder, you'll receive a recording with the final presentation slides soon. And don't forget to visit us online to register for our next webinar in February. And we appreciate your time and hope you have a wonderful remainder of your day.